Someone said that modern ultralights, or ULMs as they are known in France where I live, can only just kill you. They need to be given the same respect as other light aircraft, so already today I'd done a walk-round inspection of my ICP Savannah and checked its oil, water and fuel levels. ULMs don't have carb heat and mixture controls or vacuum systems, but my Savannah does have flaps, 2-axis trim controls, the latest radio and a transponder, so I also have to go through a pre-flight checklist. Having done that, all I then had to do was switch on its strobes and landing light, taxi down to the top of Malbec short grass runway and take off. The Asus tablet that I've been using for quite a while to run my memory map navigation software recently let me down when its GPS system stopped working for some reason. Luckily, I already had another tablet that I bought to run my drone software, and although it isn't much good for that, it runs memory map just fine. Shortly after takeoff I checked its display and settings, and as today was the first time that I'd used it, as I also have memory map on my phone, I booted that up as well as a backup just in case. In fact, the new tablet worked flawlessly. Here's a chart showing my intended route. Malbec is at the very top, and my plan was to turn left after takeoff onto a heading of 154 degrees to take me towards the city of Cahors. Cahors Airport is only a few kilometres beyond the city, but as it's quite a busy regional hub, I decided to avoid it today and instead turn right onto a heading of 219 degrees to take me down to Castelsarrasin, the southernmost point on the chart. My idea was to do a touch and go landing there without stopping, and then to continue on a heading of 347 degrees to Fumel. I also intended to do a touch and go there before continuing to head north back to Malbec. The flight would be 225 kilometres in length and would be flown at altitudes between 2,000 and 2,500 feet. At an indicated airspeed of 140 kilometres an hour, it would take 99 minutes. Although in fact that time would be extended due to the need to enter and leave the patterns at Castelsarrasin and Fumel according to the proper arrival and departure conventions. Just under 10 minutes out now, and I fly by the amazing and historic Chateau Baynac, perched high on a cliff overlooking the river Dordogne. At just over 10 minutes out and still heading south, I passed by Lot-et-Garonne, also on my left-hand side, an airfield I've landed at many times. Today I intend to give it a miss though, but as I fly by you can catch a glimpse of it out of the window over my left shoulder. "25 minutes out now and well on the way towards Cahors, so a good time to check that my position was correct by cross-referencing the tablet against my phone. All was well, and although the tablet display kept trying to turn itself off every 5 minutes, I knew I could correct that for later flights. Cahors is on the River Lot, in a depression in the landscape surrounded by low hills. It's very pretty at ground level, but you can't see much of it from 2,000 feet up as you fly by. A few minutes further on and Cahors Airport was visible on my nose. Even from this distance I could see that nothing was going on there, but I stuck to my flight plan and began my right turn to head for Castelsarrasin. Even so, as I crossed the extended centre line of Cahors runway 13, I took a good look to make sure nothing was coming down the approach. The airport can be seen over my left shoulder as I completed the turn. The next leg to Castelsarrasin would take 18 minutes, and by the end of it I'd need to have descended from my current altitude of 2,500 feet to Castelsarrasin circuit height of 1,200. But I didn't need to start the descent just yet and could continue to enjoy the almost perfect calm flying conditions. About halfway through the leg, off to my left, I spotted an eye-catching church with an impressive dome on the top of a hill, but afterwards found that this was at the commune of Castelnau-Montratier. Approaching the end of the leg, I could see the town of Moissac just off to the right of track in the distance. As Moissac is adjacent to Castelsarrasin airfield, this was a good time to switch on my landing light, just in case there was any traffic departing to the northeast from Castelsarrasin. Moissac is on the banks of the river Tarn, at the confluence of the Tarn and the Garonne. The Canal-de-Garonne, an extension of the Canal du Midi, also passes through the town, so it's not difficult to spot from the air. As Moissac's bridges came into sight, I knew that I'd shortly be joining overhead Castelsarrasin airfield. The procedure was to fly at 90 degrees to the runway before turning downwind, and it was important to be at the circuit height of 1,200 feet. I knew from listening out on the radio that there would also be some other traffic. This was quite fortunate actually, because they also let me know that they'd be using runway 10, as with little or no wind, either 10 or 28 could have been in use. I also knew that I'd be flying a right-hand circuit. The other traffic turned out to be a small white aircraft which can be seen through the right-hand window as I approached the overhead. Flying a right-hand circuit means that all turns made during the procedure to land must be to the right, so a few seconds later, after a good lookout, it was time to make the first 90-degree right-hand turn onto the downwind leg. I'd already cut the Savannah's speed back to about 110 kilometers an hour, but on the downwind leg it was important to cut it back even further to between 90 and 100 kilometers an hour to put in 20 degrees of flap for the approach and landing and to commence a slow descent. There are the flaps going in now. Still keeping a good lookout in all directions for other traffic, the next right-hand turn was from the downwind onto the base leg. By now, as the Savannah was getting closer to the ground and the morning was warming up, things were beginning to get a bit bumpy, but not unduly so. Then came the last turn from base leg onto final approach. I don't know what was being grown under all the plastic on the ground, but the heat rising up from it was sure making for a bumpy final approach that made it difficult to keep the Savannah's airspeed under the flap operating limit of 100 km an hour. After touchdown, it was important to retract the flaps immediately, as in a touch and go it's easy to accelerate very quickly and exceed the 100 km an hour flap limit. As I only intended to do the one touch and go, and there was other traffic in the pattern flying circuits, I thought that it would be a good idea to get out of their way as quickly as possible. So I applied full power and executed a fast climb out and a few more right-hand turns to get me up to 2,000 feet, clear of the circuit and on course for Fumel. In doing so, I got a great view of the town of Moissac and its waterways and bridges. So the next destination was Fumel. I've landed there several times before, and it's a nice little airfield with a single hard runway, 1735. Its circuit height is 1,700 feet, so 500 feet higher than at Castelsarrasin, meaning a small climb will be necessary en route. You can see the airfield and its runway off my nose to the left. I'd be landing on 35, so I knew I'd be flying a left-hand circuit this time. Whenever I've been to Fumel, it has always been practically deserted, with no activity whatsoever either on the ground or in the air, and I didn't expect it to be any different this time. It uses the common radio frequency 123.5, which can be chaotic on occasion, and although from listening out I didn't think that there'd be any traffic at Fumel, I still took great care when approaching and joining overhead the airfield. After joining overhead, a left turn downwind and, as before, the need to pull back the airspeed to under 100 km an hour, put on 20 degrees of flap for the final approach and landing, and start a steady descent. Then, as there was no other traffic in the pattern, an almost continuous turn onto base leg and final. As before at Castelsarrasin, the sun warming up the trees on the ground gave rise to small thermals that made things a little bit bumpy, but not too much. After touchdown, as before, it was important to retract the flaps immediately to avoid exceeding their limiting speed, but unlike at Castelsarrasin, it was possible to then apply full power and climb straight out to leave the airfield pattern. Fumel is on the right bank of the River Lot, and during the climb up to 2,000 feet, I got a good view of the town, which I've passed through several times but never stopped to visit. With today's mission accomplished, it was only left to continue heading north back to Malbec and a cold beer. Thanks for joining me on the flight. See you next time.